to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Waterville City Council. Before we get started, I will ask us to look at Councillor Foss's flag, or if you have your own. And
Whoa.
Councillor Foss, I'm going to give you the pledge, sir.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you very much. First up, we have the disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there anybody who feels like they have a conflict of interest with any of the votes that they will take tonight? Seeing as none, I'm trying to get all my counselors on the same screen here. Let's see if I can drag. I can drag and drop. Okay, next up is the approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I will take a roll call, please.
Councillor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councillor Klepak?
Yes.
Councillor Green?
Yes.
Councillor Foss?
Yes.
Councillor Frankie?
Yes.
Councillor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Unfinished business, I have ordinance 270, 2020.
I'd make a motion to take all of the items on the agenda by title only.
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
Councillor Oliveira?
Yes.
Councillor Klepak?
Yes.
Councillor Green?
Yes.
Councillor Foss?
Yes.
Councillor Frankie?
Yes.
Councillor Thomas?
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed. Ordinance 270-2020, an ordinance providing for amendment to zoning.
Move to adopt.
Seconded.
Is there discussion? Bear with me, everybody. I'm perusing my screens here. Make sure any discussion from the public?
I would like to speak if it's the right time.
There was no hands from the council, so I would say yes, now would be a good time.
Okay. Hi, I'm Anna Thomas. This would really, I think, be for both of the first two agenda items as they're so closely linked. So I've had the pleasure of meeting Mike Roy previously. I know he knows some of my concerns, as well as Councillors Oliveira and Councillor Green and Klepak as well. But I just want to kind of introduce myself a little bit. I live nearby. I walk in the recreation area almost every day, usually just for a few minutes. It's really kind of the space where I get outside. And this spot where we're talking about for the rink is kind of the first thing that I see when I get to North Street. So it's my kind of entry to the recreation area. And my first love here is really the basketball court. I've made that, I think, pretty clear to Mr. Roy. So when I first heard about the project, I was really worried about losing the court. I know that they made a big commitment to make sure there's a replacement court, but I would ask that there really be a plan for in place before the existing one is demolished. I haven't really been too satisfied with the proposals I've heard for where that court might go. To me right now, that's like the heart of the recreation area for me. So I feel like it could be a really thoughtful placement. That's kind of the first thing. And then I know I've said this to a couple of people already, but there is the little hillside there. I love seeing families go there, go sledding. Little kids go sledding, they can go. And I talked to a little girl actually just a few days ago who told me that like the other hills were way too scary for her, that this hill is like the really nice one that's just right. And it is kind of more of a spot for younger kids. And, you know, there's a whole host of other concerns there that I just hope the council really gets into and really gets to the bottom of before rushing into this. I think a community conversation here is more timely now than after lots of millions of dollars have been raised for something. And we really want to think about how the public is using this space right now already. Lots of people go out there walking. This really connects the loop to the Riverwalk, and it connects the 1 kilometer loop around the North Street Recreation Area. And I'm really interested in knowing more about, how much green space would be remaining. What would that look like? Would people still be able to play on the hillside? Would people still be able to walk their dogs, through part of this space? All those questions. And some of those, I think, lead back into the zoning questions in the sense of the intention of this space, from my understanding, was really the open green space where, that's the priority over construction and development. And so I just want those to be really thoughtful questions. Again, I know that it's early in the process, but I also feel like now is the very best time for a public conversation about this public space. So that's kind of putting it all out there. Thank you all for your time and for listening.
Thank you for coming to the meeting. Is there anybody, Mike Roy, I see your hand.
Yes, Anna's right. We've talked about this a number of times, and she's also right that the site planning is not quite finished yet. The Sheridan Corporation is working on that site plan, hope to have it done by the end of January. Many of the questions she raised are, I think, really much more suited for the planning board review when they decide whether this is going to get a site review permit or not. We can certainly make the commitment, and we have, of course, for the basketball court to be relocated and available prior to the current one being removed. And Matt Skane, who's with us, can talk a little bit more about the proposed location for the new court, which I think could be definitely an improvement over the existing one. So without further delineation of the complete site plan, it's very hard for us to answer specific questions about, will the sliding hill be there? There certainly is a hill from the Alphon News Center down towards the slide. There is a hill there too. The existing one may still be available. Hard to know until that site plan is done. What the council's being asked for tonight is the zoning approval plus the lease. After that's done, we got a lot of site planning to finish. So maybe Matt could tell us about the basketball court location.
Well, Anna, first, I really appreciate your concerns. I think you'd be a great candidate. The city has a recreation committee, of which there are 2 city councilors. I think you'd be a great person from the community. Anyways, so I don't really know just exactly where the basketball court is going to be sited, but the general vicinity is going to be up closer to the tennis courts on either side of the tennis courts. There may be some leveling and some grading and filling that we'll have to do in order to make it to make enough room. But yeah, Mike, I haven't seen the plans, any preliminary plans rather, from Sheridan just yet. So I'm not going to be the expert on where the basketball court is going to go, but I think the idea of having one built, or a huge commitment, like 100% guaranteed commitment that there is going to be one on the site, is a great idea moving forward.
I just want to put it out there that I believe, and Anna, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that her concern is that you're basically putting through all the approvals ahead of time. So if someone has a problem with it later, they're not really going to have an opportunity to have much of a discussion. That's, for better or for worse, I've experienced the system for 6 years. That's really how it works. Like, once it's it's very difficult to come up against this machine that's in place. And I would love to just hear some kind of process as this moves forward. I think there's a lot of merit to generating a little bit of public discussion. I know it's difficult. I mean, obviously these meetings are difficult. I'm flying back and forth between a couple screens on my computer just to make sure I'm not missing folks, but I don't know what that process is. I didn't want to have these answers come out and have it make it seem like nobody understood what Anna was saying, because I think I understood what her concern was.
I appreciate that. And I do feel like right now is the time for community conversation about this.
Phil, Sophia?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to echo, I mean, you took the word right out of my mouth, but it looks like the process is kind of moving forward. Once the lease is approved and everything else is approved by the council, I don't think that there would be much room for folks to be able to revert back. When I was on a planning board meeting about 4 weeks ago, there was a commitment that was made that there would be a new basketball court that would be put in with the overall plan before things continue to move forward. But now it looks like things are moving forward, but the basketball court itself, is not really part of the discussion. As a former basketball player at the University of Maine, I use that basketball court myself. I live about a half a mile from it. I see it as very popular spot. People use it the entirety of the summer. And I think it's very important that the council makes sure that there is a written commitment that basketball court will be put in place before anything else continues to move forward, so that later down the road we don't run into that issue to say, well, things are being approved and we don't really have a way to go back and fix them. Thank you.
Okay.
Eric, Thomas?
I would just echo what Mike said, which is that, the details of the site plan are really something discussed at the planning board. And, obviously this organization is not going to want to go too far down the road of planning if they're not going to get approval for the rezoning and the lease, then they're spending money that they may not otherwise want to spend. And of all of the organizations that I can think of in town, I mean, this organization has a commitment to community. They have a commitment to affordability. I really don't have a lot of worries that they're going to do the most that they can possibly do to make sure that this site remains usable for the public, that the basketball court will be replaced. I think they've been a great partner over the years for us on other projects, and I understand the worries, but I think most of what has been brought up is a discussion for the planning board when we get into the site plan review.
Flavia?
Yeah, I would like to echo what Eric just said, and because I did get a couple of emails with a concern about the specific site planning, and thanks, Mike, for really explaining to us that process is going to take place in January. So from now until then, I think these are questions that Anna brought up. It's just getting public input from now until January, so they can feel part of the site planning. And I think that's what Anna's concern was. And I think it's more about the site planning, but that process hasn't come yet.
Rick Foss?
I'll third what those two just said, but add in that, when I first talked to Ken at the location, that basketball court was one of my first questions, because I see kids down there playing all the time. And his words to me were that basketball court moves first before they do anything else. He also reiterated that at the first city council that he came to propose this ice rink. So Ken seems like he's, with the AYCC and Ken, I have no worries that they aren't going to take care of it. But during the site review process, make it a contingent of that. Once you move the basketball court, you can break ground all day long. That's my 2 cents.
Tom Klepak, and then Rebecca Green. Oh, sorry, I thought you were waving me off.
Well, yeah, I was. I don't have a specific comment. I have received a number of emails from constituents, one expressing some concern beyond Anna, and a couple others other families in my ward who are in favor of the project. I don't know if this is the right time for me to read those or express the gist of what they're saying, but people, there has been some feedback from people saying that raising legitimate concerns along the lines of the basketball court, potential environmental impact, et cetera, loss of green space, and then other people who are really quite excited about the opportunity to have ice skating in a part of the country that is a historic aspect of life here, but there's not actually a facility in town to do that right now.
Councillor Green?
Right. So again, I guess I'm echoing, it's like a echo chamber in here a little bit, but I do want to say, I really, again, thank you, Anna, for speaking, because I think it's important for us to hear these concerns. So I'm glad you were here in person and voice them. I think I also received some messages of concern. And that prompted me to talk to Ken Walsh at the Elfond Youth and Community Center. And he also assured me that the basketball court moves first. And they are committed to recreation. I mean, that is so much what they do. So I feel, I mean, if this were a different organization, I might not have as much confidence, but I really do feel that they are committed to providing opportunities for the community. And while there will be some changes in that space, I think that the opportunity to bring ice skating to Waterville for children and for families in the winter is huge, because we don't have green space for 6 months of the year. But to be able to go inside and learn, for kids to learn to skate. And I also asked Ken about accessibility, and he is very much committed to that. And I think that's very important for us as well. So these are reasons for me that counterbalance some of the other concerns about green space. And I really do hope that people will continue to voice their ideas through the site planning process.
Any other questions or comments before I ask Patty to do a roll call? All right, Patty, I think we're ready.
Councillor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councillor Klepak,
Yes.
Councillor Green,
Yes.
Councillor Foss,
Yes.
Councillor Frankie,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Order 222-2020.
An order providing for approval of lease for the Alphon Youth and Community Center.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as none, I'll ask for a roll call.
Councillor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councillor Klepak,
Yes.
Councillor Green,
Yes.
Councillor Foss,
Yes.
Councillor Frankie,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Ordinance 271-2020.
An ordinance providing for amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing as none, I'll ask for a roll call.
Councillor Oliveira,
Yes.
Councillor Klepak,
Yes.
Councillor Green,
Yes.
Councillor Foss,
Yes.
Councillor Frankie,
Yes.
Councillor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Ordinance 272-2020.
An ordinance providing for amendment to the zoning ordinance.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And discussion, and I'll try to be more specific. Any discussion from the council? Seeing as none, any from the public? Mr. Bofia.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we went over all the things last time. This time I was just hoping that when councilors dissent on the item, I would hope that they would let folks know why is that they're dissenting. I still feel like this particular ordinance is not something that is based on actual facts and precedents. There's some arbitrary, measures. There's some arbitrary things that are being taken into consideration, and no facts so far are being presented as a reason as to why the ordinance is being changed the way that it's being changed. And I would hope that the councilors who are dissenting, voting against the change, would be courteous enough to let the folks know why is that they're doing that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the public? Eric, I see your hand up.
I just wanted to point out, I got one more email from Dan Bradstreet since the last meeting, and he said, since our last email, I've been made aware of 3 more households with chickens, 2 of them on lots of a hair over 5,000 square feet and another with plenty of room, but the owners are not fencing them in properly. So just passing that on.
Right on. Patty, I think we're ready for a roll call.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
No.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
Vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
Next up, order 274, 2020.
An order providing for approving 5th Amendment to Downtown TIF District and related development program.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Eric, I see your hand up.
I think ultimately we may table this tonight because we need to work out a few more details. It sounds like I don't want to put numbers out there that aren't concrete, but it sounds like this may generate a sizable amount of income for the city. And so we're looking at how we might be able to spend that money. And this ties in actually with a discussion that's been, I see Matt's still on. I don't know if he's still there. It's a discussion we've been having with Public Works about just how far the city is behind on our road and sidewalk maintenance. And I think there may be a way for us to structure this TIF so that we can direct those funds directly toward addressing that problem. But I think that we probably need a couple more weeks to work out a few details. However, before I make a motion to table or anyone else makes a motion to table, I just remind people this is a public forum. So if people have questions or they've heard concerns from the public, this would be a good time to have that discussion before we move to table this item.
Rick Foss?
I won't make a motion to table, but I'm all in for that, Councilor Thomas. I asked Mike Roy to add in a line item in our budget that has $0 in it right now for sidewalks maintenance. So if we can start allocating funds towards that way in the budget discussion, great, awesome. So I would be in favor of tabling.
I'll second that.
Is there?
That wasn't a motion.
There's no motion on
Oh, there's no
table.
motion. Oh, okay.
Let's have the discussion before we table.
Kudos for thinking of that. I think it's the best possible use of the funds. I think it's a great idea. It's something we talk about all the time, and I think it's a great way to capture the funds to do that. And as Mike Roy has said to me for the last 6 years, there's nothing people like to see more than their roads getting fixed.
And sidewalks.
And sidewalk.
And sidewalks, Nick.
And you, Nick, and Councilor Foss have pushed very hard for sidewalks. And I hope we really can address them, as Councilor Thomas explained. I certainly support the idea of postponing. It wouldn't necessarily have to be both items. We could still approve the first one And then with the second one, definitely postpone that. And the question on the second one is just how much of the TIF money do we want to capture and keep away from our general fund? We want to capture 100% of the money coming in from those 3 buildings or 50%. So that, I think, really is the question. I think it's certainly a good idea to capture the taxes from those 3. Just how much is what we need. We need some more time to talk about. So the idea of postponing, especially the second order, is very important, because what we really found out in the last few days is by estimating the amount of taxes from those 3 buildings, it will almost equal what we currently collect for all our other TIFs. It's a substantial amount. It's $900,000 as we figured out, as we've tried to figure out so far. We collect 1.2 now in TIF dollars. Those are all dollars that stay away from our general fund. We can use them for many things that relate to the general fund type expenditures, but we are limited. And it's that limitation that worries me. With another 900 coming in, how can we possibly spend that 900? With some of that be better back in the general fund, even though I know, as Councilor Thomas will point out, we lose some of that when we put it in the general fund because we don't shelter all of the value. But people, I think, need more time to understand this. And I certainly am in favor of the postponement.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other hands here? Rick Foss.
So Mike, you and I at the beginning of this year talked about Webb Road, and I'm using this as an example. From Mitchell Road down to West River Road, to fix that tarring project would cost $350,000.
Right.
What I'd like to know, just so that we all have a ballpark numbers, so that we can visualize A to B would cost X amount of dollars, would be First Rangeway coming down Western Avenue, from First Rangeway down to, say, Cool Street intersection, so that we could visualize that distance and how much it would cost. Then that would give us a better idea of, you know, how much money we want to put into this new fund that we're talking about.
Excuse me, Eric, I just want to ask, are you talking about the roadway KMD or the sidewalk?
Sidewalk, sorry, my apologies.
Okay, because that sidewalk is going to be done as part of the DOT plan to rebuild KMD in, I think, 2021, I hope.
They're going to do Western Ave as part of KMD?
Not Western Ave. I thought you'd said.
I'm thinking Western Avenue.
Oh, no.
Eric?
Matt might have a better idea of how much it costs per foot, per mile, per something for sidewalks. I can tell you, I was curious, so I had Matt and John Lombardi pull numbers on all of our roads citywide. What exactly would it take to get them up to the point where we're just doing, maintenance? And we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 million is about what we're behind on our road maintenance at the moment. And Matt and I actually toured some streets in the South End last week. And I can tell you there's a lot of roads. Of course, we have a very limited paving budget. So what we do is prioritize the main arteries. And we have a lot of these little side streets that are in desperate need of repair. And not just repair, but complete reconstruction. And the cost of reconstruction is about $1.2 million a mile for a road. And a lot of those roads are not even in our 5-year plan because of the limited budget that we have.
He must have said something the dog didn't like.
So I think, we need to dig into
That was a lie detector.
We need to dig into the details a little bit, but I think this may be an exciting opportunity to have the funds to actually start catching up on some of these projects. And certainly the sidewalks as well. Some of these things that I don't know when they otherwise may get done. And so, we're going to dig into the details on that and hopefully come back to the council in a couple of weeks with a more detailed plan on how far we can make this money go. I'm just guessing on the sidewalks, but I think between sidewalks and roads, we're probably about $30 million behind. And I would estimate over the lifetime of this TIF in 30 years, guess what? It's going to generate somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. So if we can direct those funds, towards public infrastructure, it may go a long way to catching up on that stuff.
Great. So is there, Councilor Green?
Yeah, Eric, are sidewalks and road maintenance currently something that's covered by TIF funds right now, or would that need to be added to the list of things that we can spend the money on?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. Currently we have a TIF for the gas pipeline that was run through town. And I think pretty much all of that money is designated for road repairs, because obviously when they tear up the roads to put in the pipeline, it generates, even though they're supposed to put it back the way it was, we all know how that goes. And so it generates the need for repairs. We have in the past used downtown TIF money to repair some of the streets that lead into downtown. So we need a little consult from our attorney who handles this stuff for us, but I think we may be able to put some of these roads in this TIF district and then use the funds to repair those roads, or possibly put the sidewalks in the TIF district, and then anything in district I think would be eligible for those funds. I don't want to get too far out ahead. I believe that to be true. We need to confirm that with our attorney.
Okay, but then something like Western Avenue wouldn't really fall under that.
If we were to put those, we could just put the sidewalks in the TIF district. And then it would be eligible to spend money on those projects possibly.
Okay.
Anybody else? Do we have a motion for the tabling of this?
Mike, well, I wanted to ask Mike.
We need like a date and whatnot, I assume.
Well, and do you think we should approve this one, Mike, and then table the next one?
The next one.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
I withdraw.
So Patty, I guess we'll take a roll call on this one.
The motion is to approve this, correct?
Yep.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
No.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 5 in favor and 1 opposed.
Next is Order 275, 2020.
An order providing for approving tax increment financing district, Colby Main Street properties and related development plan.
Move to table
Until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
until next regularly scheduled.
Second.
Any discussion? Rick?
Nick, Denise Murray, I believe, had her hand up. I just caught it.
Okay.
I just want to make sure she's been heard.
No, I didn't have my hand.
Okay, my apologies.
That's okay.
All right, I think we're ready for a roll call.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
That's it for old business. We're moving on to new business. Resolution 282, 2020.
A resolution providing for referral to the planning board.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Discussion. Rick?
So this is another instance of county road where this property off 8 Rod on parcel 1270 is a fairly large field. abutted by a constituent that has visibility lines to it. I'm going to be very interested to see what planning board does with this. But when this comes back, I hope that we can have a much pleasurable outcome than how County Road came and went and then came back. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Other discussion? Any from the public? I think we're ready for a roll call.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
yes,
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 283, 2020.
A resolution providing for approval of a proposal for construction management services.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion from the public? Seeing as none, we are ready for a roll call.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
yes,
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is, that was 283, right?
Correct.
Resolution 284, 2020.
A resolution providing for appointing Uriah Pelletier to the planning board.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And Patty, we just had a little confusion on this, and I talked to Jay earlier, who I think straightened me out, but I don't know if there needs to be an amendment. I didn't really look to see how it was written. This would be, originally he was going to take Steve Crate's place.
Mm-hmm.
Steve is actually staying on so that Ann can have her quorum, so he's going to stay.
Correct.
And instead, this would be to fulfill the rest of Kathy Weeks' term.
Correct.
Does there have to be an amendment to make that, or do you just slot it in?
I don't have it in front of me what the what that seat, the expiration of that particular seat. I think it is 2023 because I wouldn't have picked the date for Steve Crate's seat because we hadn't had his resignation yet.
All right.
So I believe 2023 is correct. But if the intention is Kathy Weeks' seat, then I can make a Scribner's correction if it's different than that.
Okay. Yeah, I think I spoke to Jay earlier today, and based on his thoughts and mine, I think that's where we thought would be the best thing to do, and that would give the planning board this seat. And in January, we can have the slate of whoever else, and Steve will fulfill his. Uriah is here on the meeting. I see he's logged in. For anyone who hasn't met him, I think most of you probably have. He's the owner of Cavestone LLC, a construction firm. He's done a lot of projects around the city. He was born in Waterville, has a deep connection to Waterville, and certainly has had quite a passion for taking part in some of Waterville's renaissance. One of the projects he did in the last couple of years was actually that whole rehab of the new House of Pizza. Also the big blue house on Burley Street, the enormous one with the big red barn. So a couple of projects he's been involved with, but if anyone has any questions, he is here on the line. Mr. Klepak.
Doctor. Hi, Uriah. Are you there?
We can't hear you if you're speaking.
Uriah, you're muted. Where's he good?
oh, am I there now?
You are.
I don't know how to put my video on here. Oh, there we go. Am I here now?
Yes.
You are.
Okay, how you doing? I'm Uriah.
Hi. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, as Nick said, I own a construction company here locally. I live right here on Silver Street. It's the one with all the Christmas decorations out front. I did renovate the Waterville House of Pizza. Still waiting to get paid on that one. I also renovated OPA right next door. Doing 3 projects for the Waterville Public Schools at the moment, doing an addition to the junior high, the high school, and building a new special education department. I've owned a few properties in the city. I still currently own the Waterville Boys and Girls, the old Waterville Boys and Girls Club. My pockets ain't really deep enough to do what I dreamed with it, but still plugging away a little bit by a little bit.
What are those dreams?
What's that?
What are those dreams?
At least just to bring it back to what it was when it was shut down. Just at least to bring it back to life so the community could use it was really my hopes with it. But like I said, my pockets ain't deep enough at the moment, so it's been little by little. I have put a lot of money into that building though. But I think that the city, I love the city. Like you said, I grew up here. I was born in Waterville, raised for a short time in the south end of Waterville before I moved out to Rome. And I just recently moved back in summer of 2018. So I haven't really been as involved as I probably should have been with the city of Waterville, as much as I wanted to be involved, but you got to start somewhere. I do care about the direction of the city, and I think that there's been an awful lot of spot zoning going on around the city. I really do. I think that the city could use some, a little help with a plan, an actual plan on the direction of where they want to see the city in the next, 10, 15, 20 years from now, things like that. So.
And where would you like to see the city? What is your?
If you're gonna do this like next, Jay's gonna have a slate of like 10, 20 candidates. I mean, this is a little extreme for a planning board appointment.
Well, I mean,
it's fine. I'm just pointing out that it's a little.
Yeah, I don't mind. I mean, I would like to see the south end. There was a plan back in 2007 that was written that I was reading that really, I drive through the south end once in a while. I like the south end. I think a lot more could be done with it. But again, I know the planning board really doesn't have much authority. They actually have no authority. They just make recommendations, and the council has the authority. So again, I have had very limited experience with the planning board, other than going in front of the planning board regarding other projects. But I'm a pretty fast learner. I think that the city would value my input.
The last question I guess I have is, so say something were to come before you on the planning board that, by all outward signs make some sort of common sense, but it happens to be a project that you are not personally fond of. You don't like the project necessarily, but the project does make broader sense for the community. How, when approached with a decision like that, how would you think about it? How would you approach?
So the way that I would approach a situation like that is I would weigh the city, what really is in the best interest of the city. I would weigh that. If it was personal to you, asking if it was something personal to me. Is that what
No. I assume that if there was a conflict of interest, you would whatever.
Obviously, if
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
a
that's
conflict of interest, I wouldn't even vote on it, but
No, that's not my question. I guess my question is, yeah, how you would balance your personal preference over a project versus the broader common sense of a project for the common good of the city.
well, I want what's best for the city. So my personal preference really doesn't matter. I think that the preference of, and again, the preference of the people that have been here, the people that in the city of Waterville, listen to their voice. You know, the people that it's really going to affect is who I'd really be more concerned about than my own personal preference, you know.
I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. To the mayor's point, I'm glad that you were here because I was struggling with voting on personnel appointments where I didn't really get to know the person. I didn't know who I was voting for, and
Sure.
yeah, I think it's important that city council is voting with the full understanding of who and what they're voting for.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Rick.
I'm just thankful that both Mayor Isgro and Mayor Elect Coelho have both had buy-in and consensus on Uriah's pick for a planning board. I think that speaks volumes.
Did I really go from one screen to two screen if we had that many sign-offs? I just want to make sure I'm looking at everybody to give everyone a chance. Councilor Green, did you have something?
Yes, I wanted to also thank Uriah for speaking because I'm with Councilor Kleepak in that it's very difficult to approve an appointment of someone that you know nothing about. So I appreciate the opportunity to hear you speak about your interest in being on the planning committee, on the planning board. But I have to express my concern that we will now have only one woman on the planning board. And my hope was that Kathy Weeks' position at least would be filled by a woman. And in general, I think it's a good practice to have people on the planning board who do represent the city as a whole as much as possible. Obviously, very grateful that you're willing to serve. So I'm just putting that out there because it sounds like there are a number of positions in play on the planning board. And I'm wondering about the need to fill this spot right away until we know if there are others that will come up so that we can consider a slate, together.
Technically, the way that this works is that it's the end of the year. I would fill a whole slate and you guys would vote and they would get sworn in January. Usually they come to the first council meeting in January and it's for all of the various boards and committees. I've by and large handed the reins of that over to Jay simply because these are mostly people who are going to be working with him, but that's why I brought Jay into the loop on this. He's in the meeting. He told me that basically if we don't appoint him tonight, he's going to be a pick that's going to be in that slate that comes before you, and this just gives him a head start on that. And I do want to say this, this kind of came up back during the Charter Commission. Jay will tell you, and Patty, I'll be interested to see how this year went. Usually there's far fewer applicants than there are actually positions open on these boards and committees. In all of the years that I have been doing this, there has only been one, I think, female that asked for one certain position that didn't get that for a certain position. Literally every other, and it has not gone, I mean, you can look, it's not been by party lines or anything like that. I mean, I typically just appoint people as they come. The library board, I give a lot more flexibility to because they like to seek out and pick their own, and they have a really great working committee. So I hope that would alleviate some of that concern, because really we just don't get the applicants that people think we do, and we usually are turning nobody away. We're appointing everybody who applies because we don't even have enough volunteers for these positions. Eric.
I would echo some of what the mayor said. In my previous term on the city council, when Karen Heck was the mayor, we would take applicants, and sometimes people would put 3 or 4 different positions that they may be interested in. We would sit down and interview them and then decide, who was appropriate for what position. It's certainly something the council could be more proactive about getting the word out to people that these positions are open, and, to get more applicants for them. So perhaps there's a little more competition. I certainly don't have any issues with appointing Uriah tonight. He seems qualified. I actually was just with Peter Hallen from the Tech Center, and he had some good things to say about Uriah. He lives diagonally across the street from me, so I enjoy his Christmas lights every single night. And then we can, move on to Jay's selections, and hopefully we can get that list of names well in advance of the next meeting, so that people have time to do some outreach and do due diligence. I understand concerns about voting for people who you may not know. You don't know what you're voting for. But that's kind of the reality of what we're dealing with. But the more time we have to do some research and outreach, before the next meeting or whenever we're going to vote to appoint a group of people, the better.
Jay?
So the next meeting is in January, correct? It's the 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Patty and I have some more interviews to do on Monday. As soon as we're done with those interviews, you guys will promptly get a list probably sometime around Tuesday, as long as people have accepted those positions. So you'll get tons of ample time. And for some of you, I've already talked to some of you about picks that I have in mind, for others to be able to do research. I've asked council members to bring me picks of people they would like me to interview and talk to. Some of you have. Councillor Klepak has brought me some people. I believe Rebecca sent me an inquiry, and there's going to be a few more. But I think after Monday, we'll have a pretty good idea of who's going to be going where.
Bobby, I saw your hand.
So my question was, how many applicants have been there? How many people applied?
I don't have that information with me, but I would say that we have a good supply of applicants. Generally speaking, most folks express interest in the planning board because it's the most well-known and visible board, I think. So a lot of people are less likely to apply for, the Board of Zoning Appeals, for example. So during the interview process, we try to, do a little inquiry as to whether people may be interested in other boards if they've only expressed an interest in the planning board, for example. Because, if there's 1 or 2 seats on the planning board and 10 applicants, obviously, that we can't seat all of them. So, it's a very extensive process. We take time to speak with all of the individuals, check their, their availability, to meet the requirements, the time restrictions of each board, that they can, guarantee attendance, if you will. And if they have other interests that maybe they hadn't thought of. So, it's an extensive process. I would say we probably have 25 or 30 applicants that we're in the process of interviewing now.
All right, so that process is not done yet?
No, we had, we scheduled about 8 or 10 interviews on Monday. We're scheduling more for next week. So probably next week we will have finish the interview process, and Mayor-elect Coelho will make recommendations and send those out to you.
Okay. And I would also want to thank Maria for being here today. Thank you.
So just to confirm, are there any other spots on the planning board that we expect to be filling?
There's one term that's expiring currently, and that person hasn't submitted an application to be reappointed, so that would be one seat that would be available. My understanding is the one current member of the planning board is finding it difficult to meet the time commitments to serve, so he's indicated that he would wish to resign. The problem currently is that the city planner is concerned about meeting quorum requirements for upcoming meetings if that person resigns effective immediately. So that person is, I believe, holding on until we can decide on a full slate of candidates in January.
That was, yeah, that was Steve Crate's seat, who took over
Yes.
for Tom Nail when Tom resigned.
Correct.
And Steve initially said he was resigning immediately, but then Ann said, we don't even have enough people, so can you please stay?
Right.
We'll get somebody.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
All right, Patty. Eric, you have one more?
Well, just one last thing is that, you know, and this goes out to the people applying for these boards, you know, I understand things change, but I hope people, when they apply, are ready to make the commitment for the full term of the board. The more continuity, obviously, the longer you're on the board, the more you understand things, the more continuity there is, and people held over as there's turnover, the better it is for the functioning of the planning board. So I hope that if people are going to put their name in for these positions, their intent is to serve out the entire term.
Patty?
Yes.
I think we're good for a roll call.
I think Flavia has her hand up.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Phil
So-
as well.
And Mr. Bufia.
Flavia?
Okay, so we're approving for Oria to go on the planner board now with the application process not being done.
So yes, this is to fill Kathy Weeks' seat where she resigned, and you can either approve him tonight, or he's going to be on the slate as a 100% going to happen in January. So it's either now or January you're going to vote on Uriah.
Okay.
And Phil?
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank Councilor Clearpack, you know, for doing his due diligence and asking questions. I believe is very apropos what he's doing, making sure that, you know, he gets familiar with the candidates. I mean, I was somebody who put my name as interested as taking the slot that Mr. Uriah has been proposed for today. I think he's a great candidate. You know, I think it's somebody who would do good work for the city. And I'm very pleased that somebody like that will come forward to do that. And like Councilor Clearpack mentioned, we need more people who will make decisions not based on personal interests or personal feelings and just for the good of the community. And somebody like Uriah Peltier will do that. So I thank him for taking on this task.
I appreciate that, Phil. Thank you very much.
Tom, one more.
Is there a practical difference whether we do it today or in January for Uriah? Uriah, it's pronounced. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Uriah.
You are, yeah, Uriah. Yep, Uriah Pelletier.
Great.
Other than just getting him in, I guess the only practical difference is that the planning board has that seat filled after it's been vacant for a while.
So he would be serving. There would be a meeting that he would be serving in the interim between now and January.
Yes.
Correct.
I see.
There's a meeting next Monday, which he could attend, and then there could potentially be one more meeting before we'd be appointing people.
Yes, there's another one the first week in January. So there'll be 2 meetings.
And I know Bruce White's been blowing up my phone asking me when I'm going to have an appointment for him. So. think we're ready for a roll call, Patty.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Thanks so much, Uriah, for coming on tonight.
Hey, thank all of you. It's great to meet you all, and I appreciate it.
Next, we're moving on to Resolution 285, 2020.
A resolution providing for authorizing renewal of a special amusement license to the Elks Lodge of Waterville, Maine, Incorporating, doing business as the Elks Lodge number 905.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing as none, I'll take a roll call.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Order 286, 2020.
An order providing for amendment to Order 65-2019 solar site lease.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Is there any discussion? We'll take a roll call, please.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak.
Yeah.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is Resolution 287, 2020.
Authorizing the renewal of liquor licenses expiring between January 1, 2021 and March 31, 2021.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
Next is, we're on 288, Resolution 288, 2020.
A resolution providing for mutual aid for public works services.
Move to adopt.
Second.
And discussion? Eric.
I just want to thank Matt for being proactive on this. I think it's wise to be planning ahead for this possibility. So I want to thank Matt and Mike for putting the time in and putting this together and working with the other towns to be proactive about this issue.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Yep.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
And finally, Resolution 289, 2020.
A resolution providing for issuance of a liquor license to Elm City 9 LLC, doing business as the Lockwood.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Oliveira,
Yes.
Counselor Klepak,
Yep. Yes.
Counselor Green,
Yes.
Counselor Foss,
Yes.
Counselor Frankie,
Yes.
Counselor Thomas.
Yes.
The vote is 6 in favor and 0 opposed.
We are on to counselor updates. And although I'm not a counselor, I have an update. I'm going to give it to you. This is a big thank you to the council. A few months ago in the fall, we came to you, myself and the South End Neighborhood Association and the Waterville Community Land Trust. And if you remember, those two groups really got together to try to work on one major project, which was to rehab maybe even an entire block to focus on a neighborhood. And they were specifically looking at the Moore Street neighborhood in the South End. And when we came, we asked you guys to allow us to sign up for membership with the National Association of Mayors, which was a $2,000 expense that you all approved unanimously. It was a long shot for them to go for this grant. This was a national competition. We didn't really think there was any chance, much of a chance that they would get it, that it would probably go to someone else, but maybe this could line us up for something down the road. And I'm pleased to let you know that they actually are the winners of that grant and are going to be the recipients of a $50,000 grant. And also this opens to them to potentially a much larger grant contest in the future. So that's money that's going to go directly into some of Waterville's most needed neighborhoods. And I just want to say on behalf of them, because they're not here, thank you for making that investment on the front end so that this could happen. And hopefully this is the first of many great opportunities that those two groups will be involved in, that they're working together now.
Nice.
Eric, I see you with a councilor update.
Well, just to follow up on that, I want to thank the mayor for moving that forward. Also, I think going back to our TIF discussion, supplementing the work of the land trust might be another potential use for some of that money. And I also, this is sort of an unceremonious ending to the mayor's term. Unfortunately, we're doing it over Zoom and not in person. But obviously I'd be remiss to not thank him for his last 6 years of service. I know, I was on the council when we passed things like the revaluation. And then I got off the council and the mayor had to deal with all the fallout from that.
So you guys are going to be dealing with the closure of Main Street.
So I thank him for, a lot of difficulty work he did on that, work he did helping to bring forward all of the stuff with the build grant and to bring the public along on the stuff that Colby's done downtown, which, in the beginning, the mayor might have had some doubts about, but I think he got on board with that and did a lot of good hard work in helping to convince people that this was a good idea and the idea of two-way traffic and all of those good things. So anyone who has served specifically on the council knows that sometimes it can be a thankless job, but it can also be very rewarding. And I know that Nick will look back a few years from now and know that he had an impact on the direction of the city of Waterville moving into the future. And so I want to thank him for his service.
Thanks very much, Eric. Appreciate that. Rick Foss.
I want to echo some of those same sentiments. My political career started during Nick's recall of all things. And he's taught me a lot. But sometimes we haven't agreed on some things, and that's okay. I'd much rather have a disagreement here and there than just total go with the flow kind of attitude. And Nick, thank you for everything you've done for the city, everything you've taught me in all the ins and outs of doing what we do. And good luck in your future.
Well, since we're doing this, I want to thank you all. And I really want to have a special thanks to Patty and Mike and Eric, really, because the three of you I've been talking to and working with since day one. It's not been easy. That certainly has not been the case. Patty, I've made Patty's job a little more stressful sometimes, but hopefully I made her laugh a few times too. Mike, I couldn't have asked for a better partner in any of this, hands down. Few people know Mike. I think I've had the real opportunity to get to know him over the last 6 years. He's a hell of a guy, and he loves this city, and he loves the people more than most people could imagine. We've had a lot of times yelling at each other and laughing with each other, and we've even had bourbon and cigars together. So soon to be retirement cigars for Mike. So, but Mike, you know, since I guess this is my au revoir, and before you retire, Mike, you're one of the best, and I look forward to you enjoying your retirement and stopping down to the garage to say hello.
Thank you very much. I wanted to save my remarks for the manager's report, but really now is time for me to follow up and say, in those 6 years, we had a lot of difficult meetings, and that's what Eric alluded to. And we needed someone at the head of that table that could keep order. And you really did that for a great part of the time. There may have been one or two that got away from you, but in 6 years, that's really nothing to complain about, Nick. You did a great job running some of those meetings. Some were difficult, and you're right, you and I disagreed, but we always managed in the end to be able to be civil to each other and try to reach some kind of solution. And that's really, I think, the big test of our democracy is, can we come out the other side and still agree to work together? And I want to second what Eric said. Your legacy will definitely be the Main Street project. And when we look back, it'll take a while, but when we look back and see what's been accomplished, so much of it was you being at the front and speaking on behalf of the city, as you did a number of times, and doing it very well, and to convey our interest and support for what was going to happen. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen very soon. So you're right, Nick. The others will be left to take all the blame once you and I are gone in January. But there'll be a lot more positive than negative stuff. So thank you, Nick, for 6 years.
Thanks. Any other councilor updates? Next is community notes. Community notes is a time. If we have anyone who would like to speak about something that was not on the scheduled agenda, now would be the time to do so. Just let us know who you are and what you have to say. Phil Bofia.
Thank you, Mayor. Ted, I want to thank you for 6 years. It was great to see and learn from the things that you have done, and this community will miss you dearly. Community notes, I just wanted to say that it is unfortunate that we have some councilors who seem to put their petty feuds against a few constituents ahead of their duties as councilors. It is even more unfortunate that some councilors will use the power of the council seat to settle petty scores. As elected officials, all councilors have the responsibility to serve all constituents. Yes, even the ones you don't agree with personally. Yes, even the ones who are not from your party. Some official here are acting like they will be in power forever. Rest assured, no earthly power is eternal. Setting score with people from the council seats because you had a prior disagreement with them is not okay. Because all decisions you're making don't just affect one or two individuals, they affect the whole city. What Councilor Claypack mentioned today is very apropos and should not only be mentioned for the planning board, but even more importantly for the council who has the final say on city matters. Therefore, I hope that our city council will not go down this road and continue to erode the confidence of our constituents in our city government. But rather, I hope that our council will continue to uphold the oath of service that they took and make decisions that will be in the best interest of all constituents in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other community notes? None. Mike, we're ready for the manager's report.
All right, I have 3 items. First is something that Councilor Green knows about. It's a Working Communities Challenge Grant Program. There was an application due December 1st, and we had to get on it very quickly. So we did submit, with Garvin Donegan's help, to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. They run a Working Communities Challenge Grant Initiative in New England. And this challenge grant is for planning work only, not implementation of any specific program, but planning. So I think they note here that they're going to select 8 communities in New England. We were encouraged to apply, and we have. I'm not sure how soon that we'll hear something, but it would provide a planning grant to see if the city could work towards some kind of an implementation program, which would happen later on, well, in 2021. So I realize that's not a complete explanation of the entire program, but I do plan on sending this to all of you, and so that you'll know a little bit more about the Working Communities Challenge Grant Program. And Councilor Green, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Oh, yeah, my understanding of the opportunity is that that the planning phase, so if I understand you right, then we have been invited to enter the planning phase.
I don't think that we've been accepted to receive a planning grant.
Okay.
We were encouraged to apply.
Okay, right. Because there are 2 phases to this grant. One is a planning grant, and I believe it's $25,000 to solve an audacious problem in the community that particularly affects low-income residents. And then 6
housing
of those,
especially housing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. 6 of those 8 then would receive a $325,000 grant that would come over 3 years. So it's quite a big deal for the lucky 6 applicants who received that award. And it does involve literally bringing the community together to solve problems cross-sector, private, public, and nonprofit. So thank you to Garvin for submitting an application on our behalf, and I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Anything next on the manager's report, Mike?
Yep, number 2 is, well, both number 2 and 3 involve financial reports, and the charter requires us to report to the council quarterly about the state of the city's finances. I've been delaying this now for over a month because we've had some very long meetings. And so with me tonight is Aaron, our finance director. And if I can succeed in sharing the screen, I just want to touch base quickly on our quarterly report. What have we spent in the first 3 months? What have we taken in? And that's mostly all good news. So we want to share that with you. So I am hoping that this will work. We practiced it earlier today, right, Aaron?
We did.
We did. And
it was an astounding success.
I'm not sure I would say that, but let's see. Can everybody see this? No?
No.
No.
Not yet.
Okay, not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right, we're gonna try again, that didn't work either.
That did work.
Now we've got your email up, Mike. You got to click on the document that you want to show.
Yeah, I tried that first, gonna try it again. How about that? No?
Nope.
Nope. Should have practiced more today.
You spoke too soon, Mike.
Yeah, I think so.
Patty, has he got two screens?
Yeah.
Patty, you in the building to come and help me?
I'm not. I'm at home.
I know, I was kidding. We're gonna go, so we're gonna do the,
Just pull it from one screen to the other screen, Mike.
all right, let's try that. No, that didn't work.
Who's close?
Minimize your email.
Yeah, I did that. Minimize the email, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just close it.
I'd like to get back to the full screen. Not
Say the
sure. Stop share.
Yeah.
Nice.
There you go.
Okay. So if I do the share screen again, well, Aaron, I'm not sure why your report. Wait a minute. How about that?
There you
Yes.
Hey.
Okay. All right, it's taken too long. Let's move on. So in the first quarter of the year, 3 months out of 12, we should be at 25% of expenditures, 25% of revenue taken in. So the good news is our revenues at the end of the first 3 months were 38%. We've taken in a lot more revenue than we expected in the first quarter. And our expenses at 23% are below that 25% figure. So that's good news on both fronts, revenues and expenditures. A lot of fire department revenue, which helped to get us to the 38%, especially revenue in state revenue sharing. And you'll hear more about that in a minute. The second presentation tonight will be the health and welfare, the third bullet that you see here. Some very concerning numbers in terms of what Denise has to handle down in the health and welfare department. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But I'm just going to ask Aaron quickly on the fourth bullet, the state revenue sharing, just to give you a quick summary on what we've received, which is all good news.
So state revenue share, the actual receives 606,000 for the first quarter, and that's an average of 200,000 a month. The city budgeted for the current fiscal year 1.8 million, which gives an average of 155,000, and the state projected 2.3 million we would receive for FY21, which puts us at an average of 194,000. I'm cautiously optimistic on the state living up to their projection.
So while we budgeted 1.8 for state revenue, the state actually estimated 2.3 million that we would get. And right now, we seem to be on track to get to the 2.3, which would be 500,000 more than what we budgeted. So if that holds for the next 9 months, very good news. The next page on Aaron's report is simply first block revenues. You see at the bottom of the revenues, 38% collected. And the big category probably is the intergovernmental item right here. We're at 52%. And being such a big number, that's made a huge difference. So that's revenues. Expenses are at 23%. 25% would be the target after 3 months. The next item we want to talk about quickly with you is the health and welfare. This picture here, health and welfare, is at the top line. Doesn't show the complete picture for health and welfare. So I'm going to move next to talking with Denise. She's on with us tonight, and hopefully being successful with the first, being successful eventually with this, we can also be successful here. Everybody see the health and welfare department summary? Everybody's got that on their screen? Okay. Denise, our health and welfare director, is with us. I ask you to look at this line right here. Temporary housing. We budgeted 5,000. How could you spend 30,000 in 1 month when you budgeted 5,000 for the year? Well, actually, that 5,000 was an error in budgeting, which I can take credit for. And for the first 3 months of the year, I'm sorry, Denise, that's for the first 5 months of the year.
5 months, yeah.
5 months, not 3 months. So what you're seeing tonight with this budget is 5 months, July, August, September, October, November. So I'm going to ask Denise to just explain to you a little bit more about how we got to 116,000 in temporary housing. There's a big difference between temporary housing and the regular housing.
Okay, so since COVID started back in March, we became very instrumental in helping the homeless population. At the beginning, the shelter called upon our office to help people because the shelter was closing. So we ended up doing that. Since then, we've had a great number of homeless individuals needing emergency housing. Our office has been just inundated with people. This afternoon alone, we had 5 or 6 people just walk in that were homeless or called about being homeless. So basically that's where, when you're paying for temporary housing, the costs are exorbitant. It's just very, very expensive, the cost per week. And we're helping people for many, many, many weeks because of various reasons. The shelter is now open. Well, open, I say. They're not open really to the public, but they are able to house some people at a very minimal capacity. So they're not at the level they were at. And there's also a lack of, I should say, available and affordable housing. So it's taking people a lot longer to find housing. So in the meantime, we need to assist them with the temporary housing, and that's why that number is so high. It's just a very, very expensive endeavor, I should say.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Has the Ms. Murray, has the total number of homeless people in Waterville gone up during this as well, or is it merely complications with the previous arrangements in the city?
What we have been accustomed to seeing for the homeless population has gone up in what we've seen in our office due to COVID and the shelters not being available. I mean, we used to see people from the shelter. They would refer people to us to ask for assistance, but they didn't necessarily get assistance, didn't qualify for whatever reason. So we didn't see them again because they were housed at the shelter. But at this point, they're not housing a lot of people, and these people don't have any other place to go with no resources available and COVID still going on.
So your sense is that it's really just an artifact of shifting services rather than an increase in demand? I
think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the homeless shelter has been at such a reduced capacity since March. People have ended up at Denise's doorstep, and her only option many times is motel rooms. So we're paying for motel rooms for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. That's why that number is what it is. We can't turn away people that have an eligible need.
Mike, can you real quick explain to counselors what the Haynes Charity Trust is? And then my question is, are any of those expenses eligible to be covered by the Haynes Charity Trust?
The Haynes Charity Trust was set up, it's got a long history, but actually goes back to the 1920s when William Haynes, a mayor and a former governor, passed away, and in his will left a huge sum of money to the city of Waterville. I'm losing right now what that initial number was, but that amount grew to a very considerable sum from 1920 to the year 2000. when we finally discovered it and decided to make use of it. The council has adopted a policy, Eric, you may remember, but it only allows Denise and her Haynes Charity Committee to spend up to $1,500 a month, I think is what it is, Denise?
Yes, yes.
At times they're able to exceed that by the terms of the policy, but in a year, they can't go more than 12 times 1,500 a month. And actually, Denise, you gave me the numbers currently for the Haynes Charity. So Eric, we're able to use it somewhat, but not to the extent of what we've been faced with.
Well, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, there's more than $1 million in that account, right?
There's more than $1 million in that account.
And we've had a hard time sort of coming up with a justification for using, the money is really designated for women and children, right?
Yes, but remember we went through a whatever they call that process with a will, and we were able to redefine the terms of the will so that families, women, children, fathers, could also be included with assistance. Because you're right that the terms of the will only mention women and children, which in this day and age didn't make a whole lot of sense. So with Bill Lee's help, we went through quite a process to be able to say through the court, yes, you can use the money now for family assistance. So that was cleared up. And we dedicate some of the money from that Haynes Fund to the shelter every year, in addition to our own committee having available money. So when someone ends up at Denise's doorstep and needs eyeglasses, right, Denise? Or dentures.
Yes. Yes.
Things like that she can't help them with through general assistance. We often turn to the Haynes Fund for those kind of unusual expenses that are truly a need, but don't meet the terms of what we have for GA money. And the other important thing to remember, if there is any good news, out of this sum that you see where my cursor is, $140,000, the state does reimburse us 70% of expenditures. So that was increased 2 years ago. Denise, maybe 2 years ago.
I think it was 2015.
From 50% to 70?
To 70, yes.
Yeah. So some of this money will be reimbursed, but I wanted to make you aware of where we were at. I don't want to get 10 months into the budget year and have you folks say, hey, wait a minute, why don't you tell us in November? Well, we could have told you this back in September, the trend it was on, but like I said, I postponed this due to a number of long meetings that we have. And Denise, maybe over the next 2 or 3 months, we can repeat this with the council where you can just let us know where you're standing. Yeah. All the other budget accounts, folks, all the other departments, fire, police, public works, no special worries on the spending side. This is the only one because of the pandemic. Yes.
So my eyes are new to these kinds of numbers here. I imagine that expenditures on this sort of thing get worse in the wintertime, or not. Is that correct?
No, that's correct. Yes, yeah. We're seeing the direct result of that right now, starting with this cold spell that we've been having for the last, I don't know, 3 to 4 weeks.
You had 5 or 6 people today?
Yeah, that was just this afternoon, but we had already been dealing with the clients that we already had in the morning that are already consistently receiving assistance because not being able to find housing, permanent housing.
My question is then, while no one here is able to completely foretell the future, and we're certainly in an unprecedented time, is there any way to get some sort of a scale as to how this number is going to proceed throughout the next quarter?
It's hard to say, isn't it, Denise? We almost have to track it weekly and see, in fact, if week to week, month to month, it's still climbing. I don't know, Tom, if there's any way to reliably predict how we'll be in February compared to how we are in November.
I do keep, monthly, the monthly expenditures. Every time we pay the bills, we have those, per month that we can capture and tell you what the temporary housing is. But right now, if things don't change, I mean, we're probably looking at in that, on that line alone, the temporary housing, we're probably looking at $25,000 to $30,000 a month.
Yeah. Okay. And so the last question I had was, does the homeless shelter, what are the benchmarks that they have for the operations there, like the COVID related benchmarks that they're looking for that are guiding their capacity? Do they have a sense of that?
Well, they are, they're only taking a limited capacity so that they are able to keep people within the, the 6 foot distance of each other. So that's why they're usually at, I think, 55 people that they can handle, and they're probably at like 21, 22 at this time.
And so I guess my question was, the first vaccines are rolling into the state right now. When have they articulated what the criteria are for when they're going to be able to go back to their, at least change their capacity guidelines and to maybe approach what was their original capacity?
Yeah, I haven't had a conversation with the shelter director for quite, a few months now, because of just that we've been so inundated. We don't have time to make those extra calls, but I certainly can check to see if she feels that that's going to impact, the number of people they'll be able to take in.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? We want to at least make you aware of what the picture is, and we'll do our best to keep you tuned in as we go along. As I said earlier, it should have been earlier than now, but we've had a busy fall too as a council, so I didn't want to go any longer without at least touching base on these financials. The good news from this is that all the other departments seem to be fairly safe from the effects of the pandemic. So, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my manager's report.
If there's no further business, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
See
you,
ya.
Nick.
Bye.
Thank you.
Nick.